You often over the years, and we've known each other now for over 20 years, and in my conversations with you about your work, you two words often come up in your descriptions of your work and your thinking about your work. One of them is archetype, and the other is myth or mythology. Yes. And in fact, in the explanation of your work on the wall over there, you mentioned that you hope that this work might even give rise to new mythologies. You used the phrase. And I wondered if you could talk about, let's start with the category of archetype. I mean, what does archetype mean to you? And how does archetype relate to these particular images here?
Yes. What it means to me, since I'm not an academic, I can.
Absolutely.
Going back to the origins, of language, shape, and so forth, that come forth from its primal source, and then being reshaped and formed out of necessity to give greater power and profundity to symbolism, to signs, and so forth. If we go back into the ages of these great periods where, the Mayans or pyramids or the Celtic circles or Stonehenge and so forth and so on, is that people during that time seemed to be much more in tune to these greater relationships between the cosmic and the earth and the human being. They interconnected, and their sense of reading. And so archetypes were very familiar for them as PowerPoints. I'm very interested in that, and we have PowerPoints as human beings, of course. And these things are only objects. They're nothing without the human being. But if there's a PowerPoint to kind of bounce through the resonance, then it really brings a presence. The archetypes, to me, take a circle, an archetype, and then, which I have been using in many respects. And the circle here has to do with centrifugal force. All the movement, even in my paintings, has now more of a centrifugal force. So the circle becomes the archetype, but it's diffused and it's organic. But it also goes to a philosophical side too, and that's, if you take St. Augustine, his famous statement that the circumference is nowhere and the center is everywhere. Or you take logos of the idea that the part is not in the whole, but the whole is in everything. In the sense that we're talking about the essence, how, when you mentioned Siddhartha and different aspects of people seeking this, how do we feel something that's unsayable or, that cannot be? These are the vehicles, and we have a deeper sense of experience in us that if we recognize, then it really also becomes an awakening for us. And so I'm really fascinated, more than fascinated, I'm seeking more understanding through what I do. First of all, why I'm here, and what am I doing here? What's this birthright about, type of thing. So it's taken me a long time to come to this synthesis. But archetypes I've been, since we've known each other, 20 years, I have been thinking about. But I don't have necessarily the right definition, but it works for me, in that sense. Like a matrix, in a sense, the matrix being different, but it's a formation off one of the archetypes that you mold into the time period. We live in a time period, and the osmosis of that time period affects how we express ourselves and what is needed.
Yesterday, when we talked about your work, you mentioned your aspiration for your work to serve as a kind of bridge for people. And I found that very interesting because where we are, the location. I mean, this after all is an installation in a particular place, and this building stands practically on a bridge, the bridge over the Bushkill River, and then real near, close by is, are the several bridges connecting the state of Pennsylvania and Easton to the state of New Jersey and Phillipsburg. So I wonder, in fact, if you pardon the pun, but if you'll use the metaphor of the bridge, which you introduced yesterday, and use that maybe to elaborate a little more about what you've been saying about different times. I mean, you seem to suggest that in our own time, in our own place, our own society, that we've lost something that other societies in earlier times had. And I wonder, does your work serve as a bridge between this time and this place where we've lost something and earlier times when those qualities were there? You could...
Yeah, that's a powerful question. Well, first of all, I was using the bridge the other day, speaking in regard to the spectator, the person looking at these. And because as humans, we lean in different capacities. Some are much more attracted to sort of the sensual. Some are much more intellectual and psychological, or feel more comfortable, being able to let it be and come to them and freely. What I meant in one aspect, in a lower aspect, was that in order to really feel I think the presence is that it has to be felt in oneself. And in order to do that, you have to relax. You have to feel comfortable. That there's something in here for you that you can interpret and you can relate to it. That's on one level. Go back to your question. On another level is, bridging the past, the present, and the future, in a sense, is really the now. I mean, what we have within us is the same what they had within them, in the sense. The past and the now is the same. It's just that we have been diminishing our PowerPoints as humans because we have not used them or needed them, or we have substituted. And I think we live in a time period where, like I mentioned before, the dependency on something else has diminished our inherent abilities in a lot of ways. And so I think once we recognize that, once something hits us and we start recognizing a deeper experience within ourselves through whatever it may be, and art, I believe, is like the flower of culture. It is allowed to exist as a poetic element, no matter what, and it survives, because it has this capacity at times to really strike a chord within us. So when I talk about the past, we can never go back to the past, but to rejuvenate the wholeness that some periods of time have shown much more awareness to, and much more collective ways of bringing people, even in a community sense. It's all there for us, and I think that it's a matter of people not fearing their own natural solitude, of discovering an awareness that gives them much more fluid connections as bridges to our exterior world. I mean, our exterior world lives because of the illumination that we give it, in a sense, whereas many people think the opposite of that. I mean, we live in kind of an age of rationalism. And if I can remember Einstein's quote, which had to do with this, which is very nice, he said that the intuition is a sacred gift, and the mind is a faithful follower. We live in an age where the rational mind is honored, and the gift is forgotten about. And what he's talking about is that we have it within us. The receptivity is something we don't really nurture. And art is really a receptive part of our culture. Art being poetry, music, whatever. And also our own experiences that come that way.